Hey there, and welcome. You know, at some point, we all hit that wall, right? We ask ourselves those huge questions. Why am I even here? What's this all for? How do I live a life that actually matters? Well, today, we're diving headfirst into that very quest, the search for a meaningful life. And we're going to look at two really powerful, really different toolkits for figuring it all out: Stoicism and Existentialism.
So our whole journey really kicks off more than 2,000 years ago with this absolute zinger from Socrates. And look, he wasn't just being dramatic here. He was making a really profound point. A life that's just on autopilot, one without any real thought or intention. He's saying that life misses the whole point of being human. It's basically a call to action, an invitation to wake up and really think about the life you're living.
And that right there is the core question we're tackling today. If Socrates is right, if just coasting through life isn't enough, then what is? What does a life that's actually worth living even look like? And how in the world do we find, or maybe create, the meaning that makes it all feel worthwhile?
All right, so to figure this out, here's our game plan. We'll start with this whole unexamined life thing, then we'll look at two totally different paths to meaning. We'll dig into how they think about freedom and purpose, what they say about our life with other people, and then we'll pull it all together into a toolkit for you. Let's get into it.
First up, the unexamined life. And look, this isn't some dusty old philosophical problem. It's something we all feel, right? It's that quiet question that hits you late at night or maybe even in the middle of a crazy busy day. That little voice asking, is this it? Is there something more? It's a totally timeless, universal human thing.
And, for as long as people have been asking that question, philosophers have been trying to offer some answers, some guidebooks, really. And today we're putting two of the biggest, most powerful ones right next to each other: the ancient wisdom of Stoicism and the modern rebellion of Existentialism.
Okay, section 2, two paths to meaning. Now, on the surface, these two philosophies might seem like they're trying to solve the same puzzle, but as you're about to see, their starting points are on completely different planets. They're offering two fundamentally different maps for how to navigate your life.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. On one side, you've got the Stoics. They see the universe as this rational, ordered place. Think of it like a giant, intricate machine. Your job is to find your role in that machine and play it well. Then, on the other side, you have the Existentialists. They see, nothing. A blank canvas. There's no built-in order, no grand plan. It's up to you to create your own meaning from scratch.
So for the Stoics, the end goal isn't just, being happy. It's this idea they called eudaimonia. Now, that word gets translated as happiness a lot, but honestly, that doesn't do it justice. It's more like flourishing. It's that deep sense of fulfillment you get from living a life of virtue, of excellence, and being in sync with how the world works. It's really about being the best version of a human you can possibly be.
Now, let's flip that on its head with the core idea of existentialism. Existence precedes essence. Okay, what on earth does that mean? Well, think about something like a letter opener. First, someone has the idea of what it is and what it's for. That's its essence. Then they make it. The existentialists said, for us humans, it's the complete opposite. We're just here. We exist first, with no pre-made purpose, no instruction manual. We're a blank slate. And then every single choice we make, every action we take, it's like a brushstroke that defines who we are. We literally create our own essence as we go.
All right, section 3, freedom, found or forged. So as you can probably guess, these totally different worldviews lead to some seriously different ideas about what it means to be free.
Okay, so for the Stoics, freedom is all about building an internal fortress. They'd say, look, most of what happens out there, your job, your reputation, even your health, you don't really control it. So true freedom, that's the power to control the one thing you own completely, your own mind, your judgments, your choices. That's it. Now, the existentialists, they say freedom is absolute and, frankly, a little terrifying. It's just the basic condition of being alive. You are always, always forced to make a choice, and there's no rulebook to tell you what to do.
And this quote about Epictetus just nails the Stoic idea. I mean, this was a guy who started his life as a slave, so he knew a thing or two about physical freedom, or the lack of it. But he argued that his real self, his ability to choose how he responded to things, that could never be enslaved. They could chain his body, sure, but his mind, that was always free. This is that famous dichotomy of control, and for the Stoics, it's the absolute key to a good life.
And then you get this from Sartre, which just perfectly captures the flip side of that coin. For him, freedom isn't this nice thing you can opt into, it's a burden. He even called it a condemnation.
you're stuck with it. Even if you try not to choose, well, that's a choice too. You are just radically, completely responsible for everything you do because you're the only one writing the script for your life.
So if freedom is so different for these two schools of thought, it's no surprise that where they find purpose is also worlds apart. Is it something that's already out there, part of a big plan, or is it something we have to make up from scratch?
The Stoics had this great metaphor for this. They said life is like a play. Now, you don't get to pick your part, right? You might be cast as a king, you might be cast as a slave. That's not up to you. Your purpose, your meaning, comes from how you play the part you're given. Do you do it with virtue, with courage, with justice? That's where you find meaning, by doing your duty, whatever it is, with excellence.
The existentialists, of course, would say, what play? There's no script. There's no director. You have to write your own lines. You create meaning by picking a project, any project, and pouring your heart and soul into it. But this leads to a really interesting problem, a big critique people have. If any project you choose can give your life meaning, does that make the whole idea of meaning a bit, well, meaningless? I mean, let's take some silly examples. Could you live a meaningful life by dedicating yourself to eating every single flavor of Cheetos? Or watching every show on Netflix? You know, from a super strict existentialist point of view, if you freely choose that project, then yeah, it creates meaning for you. But this is where a Stoic would just shake their head. They'd say, no way. For them, a project isn't meaningful just because you pick it. It has to be a virtuous project, one that's good for you and for the community. Some choices are just better than others.
Okay, moving on to our last big comparison. Life with other people. How do our relationships and our society fit into this quest for meaning?
The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius really broke this down well. He said we're defined by three big connections. First, a relationship to our own body. Second, to the universe itself, the divine cause of everything. And third, and this is a big one, our relationship to the people around us. For the Stoics, we are fundamentally social animals. We're made for cooperation. Our meaning isn't something we find alone. It's deeply, deeply tied to our community.
Sartre, on the other hand, sees it differently. He says we exist by constantly throwing ourselves outside of ourselves, into our goals, our projects. It's all about what you're striving for. So you see the difference, right? For the Stoics, you start as a piece of a larger community. For the existentialists, you start as a single, isolated individual, and your relationships are just part of the world you choose to engage with. The focus is always, always on the self.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So for our final section, let's put it all together. Let's build your toolkit for meaning and boil everything down to that one central question. Is a meaningful life something you discover, or is it something you build? So let's do a final side-by-side. The Stoics, they believe the universe is rational and ordered, so meaning is discovered. Freedom is internal, in your mind, and being with other people is absolutely fundamental to a good life. Then, the existentialists. They say the universe is absurd, without any built-in meaning, so meaning has to be created. Freedom is absolute in your actions, and other people are secondary to your own individual projects. It all comes down to their starting assumptions, which, as you can see, are polar opposites.
But here's the real takeaway. This stuff isn't just some abstract theory for a philosophy class. Think of these as two powerful, practical toolkits. They're frameworks, ways of thinking that you can actually use right now to start examining your own life and your own values to answer that challenge Socrates threw down all those years ago.
And so, that leaves us with one final and maybe the most important question. And this one's for you. When you really think about your own life, which of these feels more true? Do you feel like your meaning is something out there waiting to be discovered, like a hidden path? Or do you feel like it's something that only you can build from the ground up, one choice at a time? Whatever your answer is, that's the beginning of your own examined life.